AITA for asking my friend to split the bill after she brought her kids and ordered food for them. We were going out for dinner together and she expected me to pay for everything. Last week, I, a 27-year-old woman, finally managed to arrange a dinner with my longtime friend Lauren, who is 28. Lauren and I had been close since college, but lately, life had gotten busy for both of us. Jobs, obligations, just the chaos of adulthood always seemed to get in the way. So when we finally pinned down a date, I was genuinely excited. We specifically agreed it would just be the two of us. I was looking forward to a quiet evening where we could catch up properly, share all the things you cannot really say in group settings, just reconnect without distractions. We chose a cozy Mexican restaurant that I had been to a few times before. It was not super fancy, but the food was always good, the lighting was soft, and it had the kind of atmosphere that invites long conversations. I arrived a little early and grabbed a booth near the window, feeling this warm, nostalgic kind of happiness that comes when you are about to spend time with someone you have known for years. When Lauren walked in, I smiled and started to get up to greet her, but then I noticed she was not alone. She had brought her two kids with her, a little boy around 5 years old and a girl who looked about 7. I was caught off guard. She had never mentioned bringing them along. Not once. I tried to mask my surprise because, well, life happens, and maybe her sitter cancelled at the last minute. I pushed my confusion aside and greeted the kids with a big smile, trying to roll with it even though the evening I had envisioned was already shifting in my mind. We squeezed into the booth, the kids squirming and playing with the condiments on the table, and I told myself that it would still be nice. Maybe a little different than I had planned, but still good. Lauren immediately began focusing on the kids, helping them color on the kids' menus, calming them down when they got antsy, and answering a million questions. I sat there, nodding politely, realizing quickly that any deep, meaningful conversation was not going to happen tonight. Then it came time to order. I had already decided to get something pretty simple for myself, maybe an enchilada plate and a drink. But Lauren ordered a full meal for herself, a full meal for each of her kids, and then added desserts for all 3 of them. She did not look at me, did not say anything like, "Hey, hope you are okay with this," or, "Thanks for understanding." She just ordered everything like it was expected. I sat there, feeling this growing knot in my stomach, but I said nothing. I did not want to make the evening awkward, and honestly, I still hoped we could salvage a little time to talk once the kids were settled with their food. Throughout the meal, the kids were restless. They picked at their food, got up and down from their seats, fought over crayons, and Lauren spent most of the time managing them. We barely talked at all. It was loud, chaotic, and honestly kind of stressful. I kept checking my phone under the table, wondering how long I had to stay before it would be polite to leave. When the check finally came, I thought, okay, at least we can split it and head out. The waiter placed the bill at the edge of the table, and without even glancing at it, Lauren slid it over to me with a big smile and said something like, "Oh, thank you, you are such a sweetheart," like it was the most natural thing in the world. I just froze for a second, completely stunned. The bill was almost double what I had expected. Between 3 full meals, desserts, and extra drinks for the kids, it was way more than I had budgeted for. I took a deep breath and, trying to stay polite, said something along the lines of, "Hey, I thought we were going to split this." I was not rude, I was not accusatory, just clear. Lauren's entire demeanor changed instantly. She rolled her eyes dramatically, let out this huge, exasperated sigh, and muttered something under her breath about forgetting what friendship means. But she did pay her part, grumbling the whole time. I offered a tight smile, paid my own share, and we left the restaurant with a tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. I hugged her quickly and said goodbye to the kids, who were now overtired and cranky. Since then, Lauren has been sending me passive-aggressive texts. Nothing direct, but things like, "Some people forget who has always been there for them," or, "It is sad when money means more than friendship." Every message is like a little dagger, making me second-guess myself, making me wonder if I had been selfish or rude without meaning to be. I keep replaying everything in my head. Should I have just paid and moved on? Was I wrong to expect that we would each cover our own meal, especially since she brought extra people without warning? I feel guilty, because she has been a good friend in the past, but at the same time, I cannot shake the feeling that what happened was unfair. I was not consulted, I was not asked, I was just expected to absorb a much bigger expense than I had agreed to, and all without any kind of communication or warning. So here I am, asking for some outside perspective. Am I the one who acted like a bad friend? Or was it unfair of Lauren to expect me to pay for a dinner I never agreed to host? Update 1. After the whole dinner fiasco, I sincerely hoped that Lauren and I could move past it without any more strange situations. She seemed to freeze for a few days, going completely silent, no texts, no calls, no passive-aggressive comments. Part of me thought maybe she needed time to cool off, and honestly, I needed that space too. I told myself that if she valued our friendship, she would come around, and if she didn't, then maybe that was my answer. Then, almost a week later, she sent me a message. It was short and simple, just said, "Let's put this in the past." I miss our conversations so much. I will not lie, it caught me off guard. I felt a little wave of emotion hit me because despite everything, Lauren had been a big part of my life for years. We had so many memories, so many late-night talks, moments of cheering each other on through breakups, job losses, family drama. Part of me wanted to believe that dinner had just been a misunderstanding, a one-time lapse in judgment, not a reflection of the person I had called my friend for so long. So we made plans to meet again. This time, it would be different. I suggested a small cafe in the center of town, a casual, inexpensive, quiet place with good coffee and simple food. I made sure to ask, gently but very clearly, if it would just be the two of us. Lauren promised that it would. She even said she had arranged everything so she could have time to really talk, just us, no interruptions. I decided to trust her, even though there was a small knot of anxiety twisting in my stomach that I tried very hard to ignore. I arrived a little early, just like before, because I wanted to settle in, sip my coffee, and just breathe. The cafe was cozy, with soft music playing and a warm smell of baked bread and fresh pastries hanging in the air. I ordered a coffee and chose a table by the window, checking my phone and feeling cautiously hopeful that this meeting would go better. Only a few minutes later, I looked up and saw Lauren coming through the door. And my heart immediately sank. She was not alone. Her two kids were running ahead of her, arguing loudly about some video on a tablet, bumping into chairs and generally causing a small scene before they even reached the table. Lauren followed behind them, looking tired and worn down, but also somehow as if everything was completely normal. She waved at me with a smile like nothing at all was wrong, like this was exactly what we had agreed on. I felt my heart sink straight into my stomach. I sat there frozen for a second, unsure whether to get up and leave or just plaster on a smile and get through it. Against my better judgment, I stayed. Lauren sat down across from me without so much as an apology, immediately turning her attention to her kids, trying to wrangle them into their seats while they argued over who would get to hold the tablet. I watched them, feeling this mixture of sadness and frustration settle over me. This was not what I had signed up for. This was not the quiet, meaningful lunch I had been promised. I decided to keep it simple. I ordered a sandwich for myself, and when Lauren asked if the kids could get something, I nodded stiffly and ordered a mac and cheese for each of them and a cookie to keep them busy. Lauren only ordered a coffee for herself. I noticed she barely looked at the menu, like she had assumed I would be handling everything. When the waiter brought the bill, I made sure there was no confusion this time. I smiled politely and said, "Separate checks, please," without hesitation. I saw the exact moment Lauren's face changed. It was like I had betrayed her in the most important moment of her life. Her eyes widened, and she gave me this wounded, almost dramatic look, as if she could not believe I would do something so heartless. The rest of lunch was painfully tense. The kids kept interrupting, asking for more napkins, spilling water, fighting over the tablet again. Lauren looked more and more frazzled with every passing minute, and at one point she sat there staring into her coffee like she was about to cry. I sat across from her, feeling this horrible cocktail of guilt and resentment swirling in my chest. I felt bad for her, for whatever she was going through that made her seem so exhausted and overwhelmed. But at the same time, I could not ignore that she had lied to me. She had told me it would be just the two of us. She had made me feel guilty before for not footing the bill for her and her kids. Now here we were again, and it was all happening exactly the same way, just a little more quietly, a little more carefully disguised. I paid for my meal, gave a tight smile, and stood up, feeling about 10 years older than when I had walked in. As I left the cafe, I knew something fundamental between us had shifted. Maybe it had been shifting for a long time and I just had not wanted to see it. I felt terrible, but then again, I did not sign up to be a free babysitter or a wallet. Update 2. About a week after the disastrous lunch at the cafe, during a time when I had almost fully convinced myself it would be best to slowly let the friendship fade out like an old photograph left too long in the sun, Lauren sent me a huge message. It was one of those texts that felt endless, the kind where you have to keep scrolling, almost bracing yourself for whatever emotional landmine might be buried in the words. She apologized, and at least at first glance, it sounded genuine. She said she never intended to spoil our meetings, that she realized how messy and unfair things had gotten. She wrote about how much she missed the way it used to be, just the two of us, no outside noise, no tension, no unexpected responsibilities creeping into the spaces meant for laughter and connection. She told me she felt terrible about how things had gone, that she understood if I was hurt, but that she truly wanted a chance to fix it, to find that easy, effortless friendship we had once taken for granted. She proposed spending an evening together, just the two of us, but this time at my place. She promised, and she emphasized it several times, no kids, I promise. Just us, a movie, pizza, like before. When I read those words, something stirred in me, something small and hopeful and painfully naive. Against every warning bell that had been installed by the last few exhausting encounters, I decided to say yes. I missed my friend. I missed having someone who knew the full, unfiltered version of me, someone who had sat with me through heartbreaks, cheered for me during victories, someone who had once felt like family. I missed the feeling of being understood without having to explain myself. I missed laughing until it hurt, staying up late with wine and stupid movies, talking about everything and nothing until the sun rose. I wanted that back so badly I ignored the part of me screaming not to trust so easily again. I threw myself into preparing for what I imagined would be the perfect, simple night. I went to the store and picked up all of our favorite snacks, things I remembered she loved, the cheesy chips we used to devour in one sitting, the chocolate-covered almonds she once declared better than therapy, the buttery popcorn we would eat straight out of the bag. I ordered 2 large pizzas from our old favorite place, thinking back to the nights we used to order a pizza each and justify it by claiming it was self-care. I pulled out the softest blankets I owned, fluffed the pillows, lit a few candles so the apartment felt cozy and warm, wrapped in that soft kind of light that makes everything feel closer, safer. I even made a little playlist of background music to have on before the movie, songs that belonged to the soundtrack of our friendship, as if I could summon back the version of us I missed so badly with just the right setting. When the doorbell finally rang, I practically skipped to the door, grinning like a fool, my heart light for the first time in what felt like weeks. I was ready to let the past mishaps go, to move forward, to laugh and reconnect and feel like we belonged in each other's lives again. And then I opened the door. There was Lauren, not alone, but standing there with her 2 children flanking her, each struggling to carry an armful of toys that were already threatening to spill onto the floor. Lauren herself had a massive tote bag slung over her shoulder, bulging with what looked like an entire overnight kit. Her face lit up like this was the most natural, expected thing in the world, as if she had not made any promises or assurances at all. Before I could even process what was happening, before I could get a single word out, she breezed past me into the apartment, announcing in a bright, too cheerful voice that she thought the kids would just play quietly in the room, as if that made it all okay. I stood there in the doorway for a few long seconds, still gripping the handle, stunned into complete immobility. All the careful preparation, the anticipation, the hope I had built up like a fragile little house of cards collapsed instantly. My living room, my safe, carefully curated space, was invaded within minutes. The kids tore into the pizzas before we had even sat down, each grabbing multiple slices with greasy fingers, leaving sauce and cheese trails in their wake. They ran screaming from one room to another, arguing over which toys belonged to whom, shoving each other, knocking into the coffee table so hard one of the candles wobbled dangerously. Lauren barely seemed to notice. She sank onto the couch with a weary sigh, pulled out her phone, and started texting, tossing out half-hearted shushing noises every now and then without really looking up. Every few minutes she would murmur that they were just excited, as if that somehow erased the chaos rapidly unfurling around me like a storm. We never even made it to the movie. Every time I tried to steer us towards sitting down and watching something, someone would start crying, or a loud shriek would erupt from another room, or there would be another demand for snacks. One of the kids managed to open several of my kitchen cabinets and began rearranging my pots and pans like it was some sort of treasure hunt. The other grabbed a ball they had brought and began bouncing it repeatedly against my wall, ignoring every weak protest Lauren tossed in their direction. I sat there helplessly, surrounded by the noise and mess, feeling like a guest in my own home, invisible, irrelevant, completely sidelined in what was supposed to be my own evening. An hour into this disaster, when one of the kids managed to append an entire bowl of popcorn onto my carpet, something inside me gave way. I realized that if I kept pretending this was okay, if I kept swallowing my own anger and sadness, I would end up resenting Lauren far more than I already did. I stood up slowly, feeling like I was moving through thick syrup, walked over to where Lauren sat scrolling through her phone, occasionally glancing at the kids wrestling on my floor, and told her bluntly that she needed to go. Her face twisted immediately into a look of wounded betrayal, as if I had just slapped her across the face. She said nothing, just stiffly gathered her things while calling her kids in a sharp voice. They shuffled out the door with toys and trash in tow, and the door clicked shut behind them with a finality that seemed to echo through the messy, wrecked remains of my living room. I stood there for a long time, surrounded by the scattered debris of the night I had so desperately wanted to be different: crumpled napkins, greasy pizza boxes, half-eaten snacks, overturned bowls, sticky smears across my coffee table. I felt hollow, gutted by the sharp ache of disappointment and anger, sadness and embarrassment all tangled together. I had wanted so badly to believe things could go back to the way they were, that the friend I missed still existed somewhere underneath all of this chaos and thoughtlessness. Honestly, it was one of the worst nights of the past year. I felt terrible, but then again, I did not sign up to be a free babysitter or a purse. Update 3. The next day, while I was still sitting in the wreckage of my mood and trying to scrub the last bits of pizza grease off my coffee table, Lauren texted me again. She said she wanted to talk. At first, I just stared at the message, my stomach knotting up into a tight, familiar ball. A big part of me wanted to ignore it altogether, to pretend I had not seen it, to protect the fragile shred of peace I was trying to rebuild. I doubted whether I should even consider meeting her after everything that had happened, but another part of me, the part that still remembered the years of real friendship, the laughter, the late-night conversations, felt a pull toward giving her a chance to explain herself. I agreed, but this time, I set the terms. We would meet at a small coffee shop not far from where I lived, neutral territory. A public place, bright and open, where there would be no surprises, no children bouncing off the walls, and most importantly, where I could leave at any time if things went sideways again. The coffee shop was quiet when I arrived, filled with the low hum of conversation and the comforting clink of mugs against saucers. I chose a table by the window, somewhere I could look out at the street if the conversation got too heavy. I ordered myself a coffee and sat there, watching people walk by, bracing myself for whatever version of Lauren was going to show up. When she finally walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked completely drained, like someone had taken the vibrant, energetic person I used to know and replaced her with a ghost wearing tired clothes and carrying invisible weights. She spotted me, gave a weak smile, and made her way over. When she sat down, it was not with the breezy, chaotic energy she had brought into my apartment the night before. It was more like she folded into the chair, as if even sitting upright was an effort. She sighed, a long, exhausted sound that seemed to deflate her even further, and then she began to talk. Her words came out in a slow, halting rhythm, like she was trying to hold herself together as she spoke. She told me that the last few months of her life had been nothing short of chaos. She and her husband were in the middle of a messy divorce. He had moved to another city for work, leaving her completely alone with 2 young children to raise, without support, without backup. There had been fights, betrayals, long nights of crying after the kids went to bed. She was drowning under the weight of it all, scrambling to keep her head above water, trying to be everything to everyone while getting almost nothing in return. She explained that she had no one nearby to help. Her parents were far away, and paying for a nanny or even regular babysitting was out of reach right now. Every day was a tightrope walk between keeping her job, keeping her kids fed and safe, and trying to hold on to some tiny thread of her own identity in the process. She said she had brought the kids to our meetings because she did not have a choice, because she could not afford to say no when they needed her, and because, deep down, she had thought I would understand her situation. She had hoped that if she did not explicitly ask for help, I would somehow see what she needed and offer it freely, the way friends are supposed to. I listened. I really, truly listened. I let her pour it all out without interrupting, without jumping to judgment. And it hurt, because part of me did understand. It hurt to see someone I cared about in so much pain, worn so thin by circumstances she could not entirely control. It hurt to realize how much of what I had experienced as thoughtlessness and disrespect had been fueled by desperation and loneliness on her side. But at the same time, I knew I had to be honest, both with her and with myself. When she finally finished talking and sat there staring down at her coffee like it might give her answers, I took a deep breath and told her what I needed to say. I told her that I was sorry she was going through so much, that I hated knowing she was suffering, and that I wanted to be there for her in ways that felt healthy for both of us. But I also told her, clearly and firmly, that I was not her babysitter. I was not her backup parent, and I was not an open wallet. I had no obligation to step in and fix everything that had gone wrong in her life, no matter how much I cared. I explained that from now on, we needed clear rules between us. If she wanted to see me, she had to be upfront about what the situation was, whether she wanted it to be just us, or whether the kids would be coming too. No more surprises. No more sudden ambushes at my doorstep. No more expectations that I would silently step into a role I never agreed to take. I needed the freedom to decide for myself if I was willing and able to meet her where she was at any given moment, based on honesty, not guilt or obligation. To my surprise, she nodded. She looked crushed, but not angry. I could see the flicker of understanding in her eyes, that reluctant, painful recognition that comes when someone realizes they have pushed too hard, leaned too heavily on something they assumed would never break. We left the coffee shop on a more positive note than I would have thought possible. There were no hugs, no promises of everything being perfect again, just a quiet, mutual agreement that if we were going to salvage anything from the wreckage of our friendship, it would have to be rebuilt slowly, carefully, and on terms that honored both of us. I still want to support her. I still care about her. But now, it is on my terms. And most importantly, now I have clear boundaries that I will no longer allow to be violated.